Hello, and welcome to episode 7. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the cat spool file command. It allows you to read and search spool files from qshell. In this example, I'll be using BRMS information to help query for objects that weren't saved or individual runtimes of segments within the save itself. So if you don't have the job log from the actual save, you can do a display log BRM to a print file, which is what I'm going to do first in this example, and then we'll look at the actual job log from the save. But before I run that, I want to get the date and time of my actual save, start and finish. So if you're not familiar with this command, you'll love it. Print report BRM star control group stats. Best command they've ever created. Anyway, if we look at that spool file, it'll give you a list of all the control groups that have run, their start-stop times, a whole bunch of good information, their save statuses, what tape was used, speed, size, number of objects not saved. Best command ever. But for this example, all I really want to know is the start date and time and end date and time. So I'm going to copy that to a text file. Okay, move that off the screen. Now we're going to do a display log BRM and use those dates and times. I usually go a couple minutes or a couple seconds before and after, just so I get the full thing. And then go to a print file. This example will work if you don't use the spool file, but then you don't really do the cat spool file command. So maybe I'll touch on that briefly at the end here, but okay. So we have our spool file now. We want to look at the attributes of it. So what we need is the job, user, and number. So I'm going to copy that down. Oh, we also need the file and the number for the spool file as well. So I'm going to copy that all into the notepad file here. Okay, and then the command that we're going to use, cat spool file -j, because we know our job information. And I'm just going to prep this in the spool file so I can cut and paste it onto the green screen. Same thing as like a work job if you know the information. Okay. So here's the syntax of it. Cat spool file -j for this example. Number, user, job, the spool file name, and the number of it. So let's go ahead and run that, and then we'll get into some fun. Okay. So you can see it echoes back the entire spool file. So there's really not a whole lot of advantage to doing that versus just a work spool file and looking at it. But now that we have it in qshell, we can use the power of some of the other things we've learned to help us. So what I really want to do is find what wasn't saved for this save job. So some of this I've prepared ahead of time, so I have it in a different notepad file. I'm just going to copy and paste it over here. Most of it will look familiar to you if you've watched previous episodes. Okay, so we're going to strip out some information here. We're going to get rid of these header lines. We're going to get rid of this date. We're going to get rid of blank lines. So let's see how that looks. Okay, now there's not a whole lot I can do about these wrappings here. You can see that's left over from main. If you don't like that, actually on the display log BRM, you could do star backup instead of star all. It would take care of the maintenance ones. Doesn't really bug me much for this example. Okay, so you can see it's pretty obvious because this is such a small spool file what wasn't saved. But normally you would have a lot more data in here that we just don't care about. So we're going to filter all of that out and just give us what wasn't saved. Now this part can get pretty long as far as the command itself. The syntax is very easy. What we're going to do is we're going to pipe it to egrep, and we're going to remove. So -v is going to filter out messages we don't care about. So if this was the same system every time, same job every time, what I would do is spend 15-20 minutes looking at a typical job log, copying the message IDs I don't care about, and adding them to my list. I've already done that because that took a little bit of time. So here's what I ended up with. Yeah, it looks like a lot, but again, it only took 15-20 minutes, if that, to figure out what messages I just don't care about. And it's just separated by a pipe, all of it in double quotes. Pretty simple. When you're done, this is your result. You can see the only thing listed here is stuff that wasn't saved. I think that's pretty darn handy myself. It's a lot better than going through the spool file and cutting and pasting each object that wasn't saved to try to follow up on later. That is probably the easiest way to get this information. Now, some of it isn't actually on your screen right now. This very last line here, you can see 50 objects weren't saved. Those are IFS objects. Now, I specifically filtered out that message ID because it causes us some problems. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. The message ID I filtered is CPD 37 Charlie 3. So let's go look at our spool file. So here's how it looks. Cannot save. And most of these items I don't care about anyway, but they are valid items and it could actually mask something that you do care about. So I'm going to remove that now so we can see how it looks with that out of here. CPD 37 Charlie. And if I was doing this appropriately, I would have put these in numerical order, but you can do that on your own time. Okay, so that added all that cannot save stuff in here. Now you might ask yourself, why are these blank? This is kind of why I left this out of here. So let's go look at this file here. Let's go look at the spool file and see what came directly after that. Okay, so you can see this particular one is on the same exact line as the message ID. That's why we got it. The next one, because the object path is so long, it didn't start on this line. It put it all on a new line. That's why we did not get it. This CPD, you know, this here was filtered out by our blank, this right here, this seed command here, that's searching for a blank line and deleting it. Obviously the line is not blank, but I'm only searching for like the first 5 or 6 spaces of text. And if that's blank, it removes it. So, you know, use that as you will. For me, the IFS stuff, I usually know what's causing that to be locked anyway. It's the stuff in your libraries that you normally care about. So that's one example of how to use the command. Now another that might be kind of info is not searching for what wasn't saved, but how long it took to save each section of the control group. This can be pretty handy if you're making changes to it. If you're wondering if you have a save that ran long one night and you're not sure where to start looking, you can compare a couple of nights that had normal run times to the night that had a bad runtime. So let's look at how this plays out. So we're going to do the same command, but instead of grepping out all these things, we are going to do an egrep for the messages we care about. So again, you'll have to spend some time making sure you have the messages you care about. But generally speaking, these are the BRMS messages you would care about. So they're basically the start and stop messages for each section of the control group. And you notice I'd removed the -v because that removes stuff. This we're filtering for what we want to see. Okay, so we got the control group starting, SafeSec data started, completed, IBM start complete, all users start complete, DLO start complete, and IFS start complete. This is a normal runtime for me. It did complete with errors, of course, because I had everything locked. But this could be very beneficial if you're, trying to figure out why something ran long. Okay. Now, if you have the actual job log from the full system save and you want to use it, there is some benefit to doing so, but searching through qshell becomes much more complicated just because of the syntax of the spool file. We have a lot more white space. Problems are, object names and stuff are buried a couple lines after message IDs. But I have something that will assist. I don't use it very often because, well, you'll see. So we'll still do the cat spool file command, but this is a different spool file, so we gotta go get that information. Look at the attributes. You can see the job is full, qsec offer, different number, file name is different, so make sure you change that, and it's number 1 for me. I happen to already have this prepared on a different notepad file, so let's take a look at it. Okay. Let's remove this stuff first, just so you can see it does work. It spits back the entire spool file like you would expect. So let's filter some of that out. Okay, let's get rid of the lines that start with our 5770 SS1. If you're not running 7X of the system, obviously that'll be different. Lines that start with job and message ID. We go look at that. That'll be getting rid of this, these 2 lines, and this message ID. That repeats itself periodically throughout the spool file, so we're going to get rid of all that stuff. Okay. So now we're left with just the message IDs and the text below it. It is not super convenient to try to search for message IDs here, just because the number of lines underneath it that contain the actual objects that we care about varies, and it's difficult to grab that when you're filtering. Remember, when we pipe this output to grep or egrep or something like that, or awk, it's not intelligent enough to know that I need, from here to here. It just looks for the text and gives you that line back and hides the rest. That could be a problem. So don't always rely on the output you see here as what's actually there. You'll have to do your due diligence and play with this and get it to your liking. But for this example, we're going to pipe it to awk and search for a couple phrases. So we know that typical wording of problems are cannot save, not saved, object in use, things like that. So let's see how that looks now. It looks similar to the other command we were doing, but you can see most of what you care about is there. The IFS stuff isn't. Well, some of it is actually. Same problem though, if it wrapped a line. Now we can try to go after the next line or 2 after this message ID appears, and to do that, it's not super pretty, but it gives you a place to start if you want to work on this yourself to enhance it. You can do a print, get line print, so on and so forth, and that'll get you the next couple lines after that appears. Let's look at that here quick. Okay, so you got the message, and it gives you the next couple lines underneath it. So for those lines that were blank, it's somewhat helpful because you have some of that here. Again, I typically like the display log BRM output versus the actual job log for searching for specific things like this. Alright, thanks for watching. See you next time.